Chapter 6777. Yang Qinshui and Yang Qintian already knew that Bailey Hongzhuang's pills were extraordinary, so they weren't surprised to hear this. However, these words were tantamount to a heavy bomb in the ears of others. Such an astonishing medicinal effect was something that even some alchemy grandmasters could not achieve. Yet this young girl in front of him was actually able to do it. In addition, there was this kid with outstanding array skills. Could it be that all the newcomers were already so powerful? Bailey Hongzhuang was shocked when she saw that Ning Tian could determine the medicinal effects with just a glance. She understood that Ning Tian's alchemy skills must be very powerful. I've been studying alchemy for many years, but I've only made some progress, Bailey Hongzhuang said with a faint smile. She had been trying to figure out this method in the past, but after learning from her mother-in-law, she had mastered the knack of it. Now, with the help of the blood demon crystal, the medicinal effects of this pill were even more outstanding. Ning Tian's gaze swept over the humble Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, and she couldn't help but shake her head. The useless ones are used to being arrogant, while the capable ones are so humble. It's really the opposite. I don't want to criticize you, but why do you all like to do business at a loss? If your masters see you like this, won't they despise you? Ning Tian's expression was one of disappointment. She looked at the price. The item was clearly better than others, but the price wasn't higher at all. Wasn't this a waste of God's gifts? Facing the grief-stricken senior in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched slightly. So, just how much did Ning Tian love money? Senior, the price wasn't set as low as we thought. It's just that we're new here and don't have much fame. If the price was set too high, I don't think anyone would buy it. The reason why we set such a price is to let everyone know. Bailey Hongzhuang explained the reason why they did this. Only when their reputation spread would they have a chance to sell their items at a higher price. Hearing this, Shen Xing nodded slightly. These little guys aren't unreasonable. This is a smart choice. There's no need for that now. With me here, who can say that your things aren't worth the price? Ning Tian had an arrogant expression on his face. His expression made it clear that no one could refute his words. Senior, why don't you look at this? Bailey Hongzhuang took out another pill and placed it in front of Ning Tian. This was the pill that she wanted to sell this time. However, based on the original price, she wouldn't have sold it. She had wanted to wait until everyone understood the effects of the pill before selling it. Now that Ning Tian was around, she might be able to bring forward this plan. Ning Tian took the pill with a playful look in his eyes. However, when he took a closer look at the pill, his expression changed. This pill is quite interesting. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth rose slightly, while Shen Xing, Yang Lingfeng, and the others were a little curious. They didn't know what kind of pill could make Hongzhuang and Grandmaster Ning care so much about it. Little girl, compared to ordinary pills, the effects of your pill have increased by 40%, right? There was a hint of uncertainty in Ning Tian's voice. She carefully examined the pill and slowly voiced her thoughts. Chapter 6778. They had always known that Hongzhuang's pills had outstanding effects. However, a 40% increase was a little too heaven-defying. Even with Hongzhuang's failure rate, it was still worth it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Senior, you have a good eye. As soon as these words came out, everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. Looking at the Dan and Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, their eyes became fiery. A 40% increase in the medicinal effects of an ordinary pill might not be very impressive. However, for a pill that could only be taken in small quantities, a 40% increase in medicinal effects was simply heaven-defying. This was especially true for pills that could help in breaking through. If the medicinal effects could be increased by this much, it would mean that the success rate of breaking through would increase greatly. This was something that no other pill could provide. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had admitted it, Ning Tian's gaze changed. Little girl, you're really interesting. No wonder I thought that you had great foresight. Now it seems that I was right. Exchanging an eternal azure spirit pill for a Buddha gilded body pill. Most young people would not make such a choice. However, although this little girl looked young, she was very mature and did things very well. She was not the least bit rash and was very likable. Senior, you flatter me. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Senior, why don't you set a price for my pill? All right. Ning Tian did not refuse. She turned around and wrote a price on the sign. The price was doubled. If you change the type of pill, its value will not be comparable to this price. What do you think? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the price and nodded her head. Previously, she had only wanted to practice, so the dan she had refined were all common dan. The immortal herbs needed to refine these pills were not very valuable, and were very easy to find. They were most suitable for practice. Then, Ning Tian placed the blood spirit stone in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. I'll buy this pill. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ning Tian in surprise. Senior, I'm very curious about the refining method of this pill. If I were to ask you directly, wouldn't it be very boring? Moreover, it would seem like I'm bullying a junior. Let me go back and do some research. Let's have a good chat the next time we meet. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. She only felt that this senior's personality was really very interesting. Shen Xing couldn't help but shake her head. This guy was always like this. But it was precisely because of this personality that he was able to focus on his studies. You guys can set up your stalls here in peace. If there's anything else, come and find us. Ning Tian put the pill away and immediately wanted to go back and study it properly. Shen Xing looked at Di Beichen and said, After this is over, if you have time, you can come to my place for a little gathering. Thank you, master. I will definitely be there. Di Beichen knew that Shen Xing was very curious about Senior Zhongli. However, it would be very helpful for him to be able to interact with such a master. Furthermore, judging from Shen Xing's performance, he only had respect for his master. He had no intention of learning more about him. As the two masters left, the cultivators who were watching from the sidelines came up to them one after another. I want to buy that pill. I want to buy that formation stone. I want every type. Seeing this, Yang Qinxue and her brother couldn't help but reveal a trace of envy in their eyes. But more than that, they were happy. Without a secondary occupation, they had no other means to make money. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a Qianquan bag and handed it to Yang Qinxue. Thank you for your help, this is yours. Yang Qinxue looked at the Qianquan bag with some confusion. When she found that there was a certain amount of blood spirit stones inside, she couldn't help but be shocked and quickly retreated. We didn't do anything. How can we take your blood spirit stones? Chapter 6780. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with a warm smile. In fact, she was even more happy that Yang Qinxue didn't have the slightest intention of distancing herself from the matter, but instead argued for them. They were Master Zhen's disciples. It was not easy for them to do this. She had always been a person who respected others tenfold. Since Yang Qinxue and Di Lingfeng were willing to stand by their side, she naturally wanted to do her best to help them. Friendship was mutual. You're too polite. What we did was nothing. Yang Qinxue waved her hand. She was still determined. Anyway, we can't accept these things. That's right. If we have to take revenge like this for such a small matter, what kind of people would we be? Yang Lingfeng was also determined. Although they had taken a fancy to many treasures, they planned to trick their father into giving them some when they returned. Hong Zhuang and Di Lingfeng had just arrived in the chaotic immortal realm. Even if they had secondary professions, they would not be rich. Their father was different. After being the city lord for so many years, he would have a lot of surplus food on hand. Seeing that the two of them were determined, Bailey Hongzhuang did not force them. She only bought the medicinal herbs that Yang Lingfeng and Di Lingfeng needed. In fact, she had already determined the medicinal pills they needed just by looking at the medicinal herbs they bought. Since they did not accept the blood spirit stone, she might as well refine the medicinal pills. At the same time, she could save some for them in the future. After strolling around the market, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen bought a lot of things. Just as they were about to go back, they saw Yang Han and the others rushing over. When Yang Han saw Yang Qinxue and the others, he quickly rushed over. His face was full of worry. Are you guys okay? Yang Qinxue looked at Yang Han in confusion. What could have happened to us? Fan Guangshuan and the others said that you guys got into a fight with Shen Duanyu. Yang Han also looked at Fan Guangshuan. Originally, he was still chatting happily with his friends when he saw Fan Guangshuan and his group rushing over to inform him of the news. As soon as he heard the news, he understood the seriousness of the matter and immediately rushed over without caring about anything else. His mind was originally filled with thoughts of how to rescue them from this predicament, but he never thought that after coming here, it seemed as if nothing had happened. That was indeed the case, but it has been resolved. Yang Qinxue also looked at Fan Guangshuan and the others with a faint smile in her eyes. Although these guys had always been mean and ruthless, they would still report the incident as soon as it happened. It could be seen that deep down they still cared about them. After all, they were all in the same team. It's already been resolved. Yang Han also found it hard to believe. How was it resolved? Grandmaster Shen Xing and Grandmaster Ning Tian came to help us out. This matter was originally slander by Shen Duanyu. Now that Grandmaster Zhen has brought him back to teach him a lesson, this news will soon spread throughout the entire small world. Yang Qinxue knew that if she didn't explain it clearly, her father wouldn't be at ease. So she told him the whole story. Chapter 6781. Grandmaster Shen and Grandmaster Ning are both rarely seen grandmasters. I didn't expect that they would appear together today to help you out. I really didn't expect that you guys would be so lucky. Yang Han's face showed a relaxed smile. This should be a blessing in disguise. It was a good thing that they could show their faces in front of the two seniors. Isn't it because Beichen and Hong Zhuang are capable? Yang Lingfeng smiled brightly. Beichen's array stones were praised by the two grandmasters. Dad, I think we might have some hope in the array master competition this time. Hearing this, Yang Han's eyes lit up. He was worried about everyone's safety and forgot about this point. Now that he thought about it carefully, although Di Beichen didn't participate in the array master competition, perhaps his array skills were really outstanding. Even if his current array master level wasn't high, as long as he had a few more years to learn array skills, it would be good for him to participate in the array master competition in the future. Fan Guangshuan and the others' moods were completely different at this moment. Previously, they thought that Di Beichen and Shen Duanyu were simply courting death, but they didn't expect that Di Beichen actually had the upper hand in the first round of battle. Listening to them, Shen Duanyu had lost all his faith in this matter. Beichen, study array skills well. Don't worry about anything else, Yang Han said with a smile. Di Beichen nodded. Then where are you going now? We've already walked around today and are ready to go back. But Beichen is preparing to go to Grandmaster Shen Xing's place, Yang Qinxue replied. After hearing the second half of the sentence, Yang Han's eyes lit up with excitement. Was he invited by Grandmaster Shen Xing? Of course. Otherwise we wouldn't dare to disturb him so casually. Yang Han nodded happily. Since it's Grandmaster Shen's invitation, you can't be late. Go quickly, I'll show you the way. Looking at their father's excited look, Yang Qinxue and her brother looked at each other. Their father had completely forgotten his identity now. I'll wait for you at my place. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Di Beichen nodded slightly. He had originally wanted to go with Hong Zhuang. However, according to Grandmaster Shen Xing's previous behavior, he was afraid that he wanted to speak with him alone. Therefore he didn't insist. Master, will it be dangerous for the male master to go alone? I can tell that Grandmaster Zhen isn't a good person at first glance. His resentment was very obvious when he left. Xiaohei pursed her lips. Like master, like disciple. The two of them are obviously the same. Don't worry. With Master Shen here, there won't be a problem. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. From the confrontation between Shen Xing and Zhen Gudao, she could tell that Shen Xing was not afraid of Zhen Gudao. On the contrary, it was Zhen Gudao who was a little weak. There was already enmity between them and Shen Duanyu, so it was already destined that they would be targeted by Zhen Gudao. At this time, it was clearly not a bad thing for them to get to know someone on the opposing side. I didn't expect that with Senior Zhong Li's personality, he would actually give people pointers. This is really surprising. Xiao Hei had a rueful look on her face as she thought back to when they first met Senior Zhongli. It was simply too difficult to get a word of advice from him. Chapter 6782. Bailey Hongzhuang could see that Shen Xing respected Senior Zhongli from the bottom of his heart. If he met Zhongli's junior, he would definitely treat him as his own junior and nurture him well. However, since they had met this time, they would probably meet again in the future. There would always be a chance. Just as everything was going smoothly for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Shen Duanyu was suffering the wrath of his own master. You idiot! You didn't even get to the bottom of the matter before running over to accuse others. If the other party was a nobody without any backing, then so be it. But both Shen Xing and Ning Tian are helping him. Aren't you just seeking your own death? Zhen Gudao's eyes were full of anger. Because of this matter, he was once again a level lower in front of Shen Xing. Master, that Di Baichen indeed has no background, but I don't know why the two grandmasters are helping him so much. Shen Duanyu also felt aggrieved. He was all too clear about Di Baichen's background. He was almost certain that they had never met before this. Even with his status as the city lord of Qingyang City, it was impossible for him to be on this path. Who would have thought that this most impossible thing would actually happen? If he didn't have any background, Shen Xing's attitude today wouldn't be just this. Zhen Gudao snorted coldly. He and Shen Xing had interacted for so many years. Although they had never gotten along, this was the first time they had been so insistent. Spoiled demonic wife, meow, do you dare answer? If there was no relationship between the two of them, then it would really be strange. It's just that after Grandmaster Shen saw the mark on the formation stone that Di Baichen created, he was certain that his master had once given him guidance. I also felt that it was baffling. Who would have thought that it would be for such a reason? Shen Duanyu was also convinced. He just didn't understand how Grandmaster Shen could be so certain of all this just from this point. Di Baichen was merely a cultivator who had just ascended not long ago. How could he possibly have such a background? It's actually because of this? Zhen Gudao was also somewhat incredulous. Has this Shen Xing gone senile? Perhaps he knows that you're my disciple, so he's deliberately finding fault with you. Zhen Gudao didn't believe these groundless things. Instead, it seemed more like he was targeting him. Master, will we really tell everyone about this? Shen Duanyu's face was bitter. If this news was made known to everyone, wouldn't he become a joke? I'm afraid this matter can't be changed. Let's just leave it at that. It won't be long before everyone forgets about this. It's fine. Zhen Gudao waved his hand. The competition is about to begin. Behave yourself for the time being, and don't cause any more trouble. Yes, master. Shen Duanyu breathed a sigh of relief. His master had already attributed all of this to the grudges between the four of them, and it had nothing to do with him. Di Baichen, just you wait. Shen Duanyu clenched his fists, his eyes filled with hatred. A nameless pawn actually dared to take down his name. He wanted to see just how strong this guy's array techniques were. As long as he defeated this brat in the array master competition, then all the rumors from before would disappear without a trace. Instead, it would increase his popularity even more. But he had just walked out when a man came in front of Shen Duanyu. The matter you asked me to inquire about earlier, I've already found out. Who was the person who exchanged the Buddha Gilded Body Pills pill formula? Chapter 6783. How is this possible? Shen Duanyu was stunned. The Eternal Azure Spirit Pill was an extremely precious pill formula. With Bailey Hongzhuang's background, it was impossible for them to have it. When I first heard this news, I also found it hard to believe. But after asking several people at the stalls, this matter can be said to be confirmed without a doubt. The man's voice was firm. Doesn't this explain why Master Ning and the others want to help? Shen Duanyu suddenly realized. He never thought that the root of this matter would be like this. So that's how it is. So Bailey Hongzhuang deliberately used this pill formula to gain Master Ning's favor? As the saying goes, one's eyes blind one's eyes. The reason why Master Ning would get involved at this time must be because of this matter. This is not impossible. They have no power, no background and no power. If they can win the favor of a master through a pill formula, they would naturally be more than willing. The Eternal Azure Spirit Pill's formula was indeed precious, but in their hands, it was far less useful than making friends with a master. It had to be said that this method was indeed very clever. I really didn't expect them to be so scheming. No wonder Master Ning was so sure that I couldn't get the Buddha Gilded Body Pill's formula. Hey! Shen Duanyu spat. The jealousy on his face became more and more ferocious. He always knew that the relationship between Ning Tian and his master was not good. But he also knew that his master wanted the Buddha Gilded Body Pill's formula very much. So he tried to curry favor with Master Ning, hoping that he would relent. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had made such a ruckus, there was absolutely no possibility of that happening. Then what do we do now? Shen Duanyu narrowed his eyes and fell into deep thought. Now everyone is saying that I'm slandering them. If we release this news, then some people will begin to suspect Di Beichen and the others. This is also very beneficial to me. The Eternal Azure Spirit Pill plus the Buddha Gilded Body Pill is enough to cause them a lot of trouble. Hearing this, the man's eyes lit up. Then I'll release this news. Shen Duanyu nodded slightly. Be careful. Don't make it too obvious, lest others find out. His master had already warned him not to cause any trouble for the time being, so he stayed at his residence with peace of mind. As for the others who wanted to cause trouble for Di Beichen and the others, it had nothing to do with him. Moreover, once this matter was exposed, Shen Xing and Ning Tian would both be questioned, and Master would also benefit from it. After returning to her residence, Bailey Hongzhuang entered her room and began to refine pills. It was said that there would be new vendors and new items at the gathering every day, so they could go take a look tomorrow. Who knows, they might find some surprises. Through her research, she found that the blood demon crystal could not only be used on those few elixirs, but also on every type of elixir. However, depending on the type of pill and the minute differences in the refining process, the time and amount of blood demon crystals used would be more precise. During this period of time, she had already lost count of how many times she had tried and how many times she had failed. It was during this process that she had gained some insights. At the very least, compared to his initial confusion, he now had a certain level of understanding. Chapter 6784. As the medicinal herbs were placed into the pill furnace one by one and turned into a pure medicinal liquid, Bailey Hongzhuang took out a blood demon crystal and tempered it to the extreme so that it no longer contained any impurities. The Immortal Establishing Pill was a pill that could help a cultivator to break through to the elementary immortal stage. However, the Immortal Establishing Pill was different from other pills. It had a restriction, and that was that each cultivator could only consume a maximum of 3 pills. If one still could not break through to the elementary immortal stage after consuming the 3rd pill, the chances of breaking through in the future would become very slim. Initially, she had set her goal on the Immortal Establishing Pill. If she could increase the efficacy of the Immortal Establishing Pill, it would mean that the cultivator's chances of breaking through would increase significantly. 40%. This result could be said to be heaven-defying. This was definitely not an effect that could be surpassed by consuming 2 pills together. The more difficult it was to break through the bottleneck of the elementary immortal stage, the greater the significance of increasing this probability. Even though they could not use it at the moment, they believed that they would need to use it soon. Xiao He stood quietly by the side, not daring to disturb them at all. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully controlled every step. Her mental energy spread out and grasped the minute changes in the heat. She had only bought 2 sets of medicinal herbs for the Immortal Establishing Pill. Just these 2 sets of medicinal herbs had cost an extremely shocking price. If she could successfully refine the pill, she would naturally earn back several times the price. However, if she failed, it would mean that she would lose everything. A faint fragrance spread throughout the room. As the pill gradually took shape, a trace of joy appeared on Xiao Hei's face. However, just as the pill fragrance was getting thicker and thicker, a faint muffled sound suddenly rang out. Immediately after, the thick pill fragrance had turned into a burnt smell. What a pity. Xiao Hei's face was full of regret. The pill was almost ready to be refined, but she never thought that it would fall short at the last moment. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned as she looked at the ruined medicinal dregs. She had almost succeeded in refining the pill. Fortunately, there's another set. Bailey Hongzhuang pushed aside the agitation in her heart. She calmed her mind and adjusted her condition to its best before continuing to refine the pill. The room once again regained its tranquility. Only the slight movement of the herbs after entering the pill furnace could be heard. Yang Qinxue and Yang Qinxue sighed when they smelled the scent of a failed pill. If Hong Zhuang's pill refining success rate could increase, then she would be worthy of being called a genius alchemist. But it was a pity that the success rate of refining pills was way too low. So many precious immortal herbs were wasted just like that. What a pity. I wonder what kind of pill Hong Zhuang is concocting. I think we should completely give up on the idea of learning alchemy. Otherwise, just these immortal herbs alone will exhaust us. Yang Lingfeng sighed. Even if he had the city lord as a father, he still couldn't afford to be drained like this. Indeed, I feel that Hong Zhuang's path has not been easy. A trace of heartache appeared in Yang Qinshue's eyes. If an alchemist did not have a strong enough background and had to rely on themselves, then this path would be too difficult. Bailey Hongzhuang, who was concentrating on refining pills, was completely unaware that the siblings outside were actually doting on her so much. If she knew, her feelings would probably be very complicated. I saw that you were mainly collecting medicinal herbs for the immortal establishment pill in the market. So I guess that you were preparing to break through to the elementary immortal stage. These two immortal establishment pills are 40% more effective than ordinary immortal establishment pills. I'm sure the success rate will increase a lot. As her voice fell, Yang Lingfeng and Yang Qinxue just stood there quietly, their expressions a little wooden. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but wave her hand in front of their eyes, she found that the two of them directly rushed up to her. Yang Qinxue grabbed her arm excitedly. Hongzhuang, you're so nice. Ah, how can there be such a considerate person in this world? Chapter 67-86. Do you want to hug her? At this moment, a gentle voice sounded from behind the door. Yang Lingfeng raised his head and saw the handsome and refined face. It was different from the usual breeze-like face. At this moment, there was a hint of threat in it. Haha. Yang Lingfeng laughed sheepishly. I was just joking. The first time he noticed Beichen's displeasure, the intimidating power was not inferior to his own father's. Bailey Hongzhuang looked helplessly at Di Beichen, who had a cold expression on his face, and said with a smile, "We were just joking. Don't make such jokes casually in the future." Di Beichen's voice was cold and hard. Bailey Hongzhuang stuck out her tongue. Understood. Yang Lingfeng also hurriedly expressed his position. Absolutely not, I promise. Only when the solemn expression on Di Beichen's face disappeared did Yang Lingfeng breathe a sigh of relief. He also understood that Beichen's feelings for Hong Zhuang completely did not allow others to have the slightest bit of desire. How was your chat with Grandmaster Shenxing just now? Bailey Hongzhuang looked over with concern on her face. We only talked about some exchanges on array techniques. Grandmaster Shen was very generous and was willing to give this junior pointers. He even gave me 2 books to study properly. Facing Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen's expression instantly became gentle, and even his voice was filled with love. That's pretty good. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Grandmaster Shen is an open-minded person. With him around, at least we don't have to worry too much about Jin Gudao causing trouble for us. Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng could feel the sweet atmosphere between the two of them, and they could not help but feel a little emotional. Sigh. Looking at them like this makes me want to find someone to accompany me. Yang Lingfeng sighed. He had never felt anything before, but now that he looked at this harmonious and beautiful pair all day long, he was a little moved. Yang Qinxue chuckled. If father heard what you said, he would definitely feel comforted. Don't talk about me. You and Qingli should speed up. Both of you are so lukewarm. I'm getting anxious. Yang Lingfeng rolled his eyes. After so many years, they had already tacitly agreed that the two of them were a couple. But the two of them just had to be so wishy-washy. You don't have to worry about it. Yang Qinshua's expression changed slightly, and she quickly retorted. Qingli, why are you here? Di Beichen suddenly asked. Hearing this, Yang Lingfeng couldn't help but laugh. Beichen, how come even you know how to play people like this now? You two are really... Yang Qinshua turned around speechlessly, only to find that Bai Qingli was already standing behind her. Then did he hear what they said just now? You, why are you here? Yang Qinshua was at a loss. Her face was tinged with a hint of crimson, and she didn't even dare to look him in the eye. Just now it was all nonsense. Bai Qingli looked at Yang Qinshua, and his gaze gradually softened. I understand. Understand? What exactly did he understand? Yang Qinshua raised her head in confusion, only to meet a pair of gentle eyes. Her cheeks instantly turned even redder. Yang Lingfeng raised his eyebrows, a trace of pride in his expression. Brother Qingli, it's best that you understand. After all, you are someone who has passed my test. Chapter 67-87. I'm here because I've heard some news. Bai Qingli's brows furrowed in seriousness, and her voice deepened. There's a rumor going around that you have 2 lost pill formulas in your possession. As soon as she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' expressions changed slightly. It was obvious that she was talking about the Buddha's Gilded Body pill and the Eternal Azure Spirit pill. I've heard about what had happened at the market. Shen Duanyu had purposely slandered you, but later on, the rumor turned into Master Ning's deliberate protection of you. The reason is because of these 2 pill formulas? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Bai Qingli nodded. That's right. Fuck, this must be Shen Duanyu's doing. That fellow is truly despicable and shameless. Yang Lingfeng cursed. He had thought that Shen Duanyu would stop after suffering such a loss. He never thought that not only would this fellow refuse to stop, he would even spread such a rumor. Even a fool would know that this news would benefit Shen Duanyu the most. Not only would it help him lessen the impact from before, it would also pour dirty water on them. It's not just us. This basin of dirty water has affected the 2 great masters as well. Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows. Compared to their own situation, this was nothing much. After all, Shen Duanyu was an expert in these kinds of tricks. However, the 2 great masters were fair people, yet they had been given such a title. I didn't expect Shen Duanyu's speed to be so fast. Although we stopped in front of Master Ning's booth for a while, there shouldn't be many people who know about it. Who would have thought that this guy actually figured it out? Yang Qinshua looked worried. What should we do now? No one would dare to have any ideas about the lost pill formulas in the great master's hands. However, if everyone knows that you have the lost pill formulas, this matter will become complicated. Although most of the cultivators in the realm of chaotic immortals have not broken through to the elementary immortal stage, they were weak and alone. How could they possibly compare to the other party's strength in numbers? Once these people join forces against them, even if her father were to intervene, they would not be able to stop them. Father is worried about this, which is why he asked me to inform you. Bai Qingli looked nervous. Why don't you stay with us for the next 2 days? Before more people find out, it'll be safer for us to stay together. Does that mean we can't go out for a few days? Yang Qinshua frowned. Based on the current situation, it's best not to go out. Otherwise there will be danger. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. She also understood the seriousness of the situation. In this small world, there were many powerful cultivators. If they were not careful, not only would they be in trouble, even the people of Qingyang City and Xi'an City would be in trouble. If we don't leave the house, won't we be letting Shen Duanyu take advantage of us? Yang Lingfeng was unwilling. He couldn't accept letting this guy be so smug. At this moment, Di Beichen's voice rang out. He won't be proud for long. Everyone's gaze involuntarily turned towards him. Could it be that Beichen planned to thoroughly defeat him in the Array Master competition? Master Ning is not someone to be bullied. Di Baichen continued. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. That's right. Shen Duanyu might have dug a hole for himself. Chapter 6788. Yang Qinxue looked at the tacit understanding between the two of them, and couldn't help but think about it carefully. She immediately understood. Based on their experience with Master Ning, he wasn't someone who was afraid of causing trouble, and his stingy personality was different from Master Shen's. Now that someone had put such a name on his head, it would be strange if he could tolerate it. So, we'll just wait and watch the show. Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang raised their eyebrows. Their expressions had already explained everything. Bai Qingli, who was originally extremely worried, was puzzled when she saw the four of them looking like they were waiting to watch a good show. What do you mean? You'll know when you see. Although they still had to be wary of other people coveting it, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were in a better mood when they thought about how Shen Duanyu would definitely suffer. Look, there are more people around the residence. Yang Lingfeng pointed at the figures outside the window, his eyes cold. Ever since Bai Qingli informed them of the news, he found that more and more cultivators were heading to this place. However, none of these cultivators took the initiative to come to the door. Instead, they stopped nearby to watch, as if waiting to see who would be the first to eat crabs. Even if Qingyang City's performance in the Array Master Conference had always been very good, it didn't mean that Qingyang City's strength was that bad. It wasn't a wise move to easily offend a city lord. However, the allure of 2 lost pill formulas was simply too great. The Buddha Gilded Body pill was fine, but the Eternal Azure Spirit pill was extraordinarily precious. Usually, it had almost disappeared without a trace. Now that the man had appeared, if they missed it, it would be difficult to find him in the future. These guys won't gang up on us, right? Xiao He couldn't help but ask. That won't happen. Yang Lingfeng waved his hand. This is a serious crime of attacking a city lord. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to do it. Then what do we have to be afraid of? Xiao He asked in surprise. He was worried that these guys would surround them. When that time came, it wouldn't be easy to kill their way out of the encirclement. When we're in the house, the other party won't take the initiative to attack us. But if we go out, things will be different. As long as it's not in the bazaar, the grudges that happen in other places are considered personal grudges between cultivators. When the time comes, it'll be a real gang fight. Yang Lingfeng shrugged. That's why we can only stay here. We definitely can't go out. Thinking about being ganged up on by so many cultivators, that was really a dead end. This scene is strangely familiar. Xiao He's lips twitched slightly. Why did she feel like this wasn't the first time something like this had happened? Bailey Hongzhuang was also a little helpless. When she was in Penglai Palace, something like this had happened. She almost lost her life, but fortunately she made it through. Now that they were here, they had no interest in trying again. It's very safe to stay in the house, but I think father will be in trouble. Yang Qinshua's expression was complicated. She subconsciously looked upstairs. What do you mean? The Eternal Azure Spirit pill. Not to mention ordinary cultivators. Even the city lord would not be able to ignore this benefit. Chapter 6789. Yang Qinxue was very familiar with this kind of routine. In short, this was indeed a big problem. The Eternal Azure Spirit pill was not a very high-grade pill, but it could help a cultivator to refine the yuan power in their body, making it more condensed. This pill could be said to be suitable for any cultivator. However, as time passed, there were fewer and fewer people who had the pill formula. Now, although everyone knew about this pill, there were very few who had actually seen it. The Eternal Azure Spirit pill had appeared before. At that time, it was sold at a very shocking price. Moreover, it was gone in the blink of an eye, which was very regrettable. It was because of this that they were so shocked when they found out that Hong Zhuang had the Eternal Azure Spirit pill formula. Coincidentally, I have a few Eternal Azure Spirit pills in my hands. Why don't you give them to the city lord? Perhaps he'll have an easier time? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were filled with thoughts. This matter was all because of her. Personally, She did not want to cause any trouble for others. You have the eternal azure spirit pill in your hands? Yang Qingxue cried out in surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I had wanted to give this pill to you before, but you refused. Refused? Refused? Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's casual and calm look, Yang Qingxue and Yang Lingfeng hated that they could not take a brick and knock themselves unconscious. They had actually refused such a precious and rare pill. Was there something wrong with their brains? They could not help but recall the few times Hong Zhuang had wanted to give them the pill. However, they thought that it was too difficult for Hong Zhuang to refine the pill, so they had not accepted it. Until Hong Zhuang had given them the immortal establishment pill. Because they really needed it, they did not refuse. However, it was only at this moment that they realized that the pills they had refused were so expensive. Bai Qingli looked at Yang Lingfeng and Yang Lingfeng's expressions, and could not help but laugh. Refused the eternal azure spirit pill? If this news were to spread, everyone would think that these two had gone mad. Hong Zhuang, it's not easy for you to refine the pill. Yang Qingxue quickly recovered. Although she could not help but feel regret, she was more concerned. Let my father worry about it. It's just a little more effort, it's not a big deal. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. These pills are not difficult to refine. I don't want to keep causing trouble for City Lord Yang. I feel uneasy. What's there to feel uneasy about? It's fine. Yang Ling said nonchalantly. Yang Lingfeng's, Yang and Yang's expressions, Bailey Hongzhuang, and the others were speechless. Was it really okay to trick his own father like this? Yes, Hongzhuang. Yang Qingxue saw Bailey Hongzhuang's stubbornness and couldn't stand it anymore. She couldn't help but say, actually, we all know how difficult it is for you to refine pills. Don't force yourself. Forced? Bailey Hongzhuang was puzzled. I'm not forcing myself. Sigh, Yang Lingfeng sighed. Yang Lingfeng sighed. He understood that if he didn't expose this matter, it would be troublesome in the future. He said, we've already seen the failure rate of your alchemy. You should keep this alchemy pill that you've refined with great difficulty. With Hong Zhuang's terrible failure rate, who knew how many precious herbs she had to use to refine these pills, not to mention the effort. It turned out that, when they encountered it, it was Hong Zhuang who was researching and not seriously refining pills. Just the word research meant that it was destined to be a failure. It would not be easy to succeed. So we've been mistaken all along. Yang Lingfeng's lips twitched. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and smiled like a peach blossom in March. Yes. Hearing this affirmative answer, the siblings looked at each other and couldn't help but wail in their hearts. After all, the current situation was already troublesome enough, because this matter was related to the two grandmasters, Ning Tian and Shen Xing. The group from Qingyang City, that had been treated as a joke, had become the center of attention. Many people began to inquire about the identities of Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. They wanted to know if these two young people had any background. She wanted to get up, but the man pulled her into his arms. Leaning against the man's warm chest, Bailey Hongzhuang took the opportunity to rest her head on his strong and powerful arms, and a faint smile bloomed on her face. This matter hasn't been resolved yet. There are still many people watching us from the outside. We won't be able to leave today, so there's no need to rush. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. You're right. Because of what happened yesterday, Qin Shui and the others were very worried. They also talked about it until very late last night. However, it was clear that there was no other way. Chapter 67-93. Di Beichen hugged the little one in his arms. As soon as he lowered his head, he saw the little face that was deep in thought. Ripples also appeared in his deep black eyes. If they come with us, we'll disguise ourselves and leave Qingyang City. It's that simple. Bailey Hongzhuang thought carefully, you're right. If they don't go, we'll go. It's just that it wasn't easy for us to get to know Qin Shue and the others. It's a bit of a pity to have to leave so soon. Di Beichen noticed the trace of reluctance in Bailey Hongzhuang's mood. His large hand grasped her soft little hand, and he continued. The limelight is at its peak right now. As long as we disappear for a while, they'll disperse if they can't find us. If you don't want to leave, we can go back to the clan first. It won't be too late to come back after the limelight has passed. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. You're still the smart one. Even if they appeared in Qingyang City again, they would still attract the attention of some people. But that would only be a small portion of people. They definitely wouldn't be watched by so many people like they were now. After the two of them had finished tidying themselves up, they heard the noise downstairs as soon as they opened the door. They couldn't help but look at each other and gradually frown. It's because of these two guys that we can't even go to the bazaar now. It's already very troublesome that he offended Shen Duanyu. Yesterday he even purposely showed off. Now, everyone's going to be implicated by him. Fan Guangshuan and the others were full of resentment. Ever since they knew that they were being watched by so many people, they had been complaining everywhere. Now they could only stay here and couldn't go anywhere. They originally wanted to go to the bazaar and set up a stall to exchange for some things they needed. Now they couldn't even participate in this rare bazaar. This trip was practically a waste of time. Yang Qinshue's face grew darker and darker as she listened to Fan Guangshuan and the others speak more and more excessively. Have you said enough? Perhaps it was because they had never seen Yang Qinshu angry before. But her sudden roar shocked Fan Guangshuan and the others. Can you guys stop complaining about others? Shen Duanyu isn't someone from Qingyang City. Beichen is our teammate. Not to mention that Beichen wasn't responsible for what happened yesterday. If you like Shen Duanyu so much, then go and find him directly. Yang Qinshue's face was filled with unspeakable anger. She was already in a very bad mood after such a thing happened. She didn't expect that these guys would continue to talk nonsense here. It really made her unhappy. Along the way, she had endured for a long time, but found that these guys did not stop at all. Fan Guangshuan and the others were stunned at first, and then their expressions became extremely ugly. After a while, Fan Guangshuan said, Miss Yang, do you mean that we don't need to take your place in the competition? That's right, there's no need. It wasn't Yang Qinshui who said this, but Yang Lingfeng. It's fine if you don't want to participate. Hurry up and find your Shen Duanyu. If your heart isn't there, what's the point of keeping you alive? As soon as these words came out, the expressions of Fan Guangshuan and the others suddenly changed. They had been talking about this without restraint because Yang Qinshui and the others didn't blame them too much for this matter, so they had been very indifferent. Chapter 6794. If you want to stay, then don't say such meaningless nonsense. If you don't want to stay, we won't force you to stay. It's up to you. After Yang Qinshui said this, she pulled Yang Lingfeng upstairs, obviously unwilling to say anything else about this matter. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen stood at the top of the stairs until Yang Qinshui and her brother came up. Sister, wasn't what I said very domineering? Yang Lingfeng raised his eyebrows looking proud. These guys are always nagging like girls, I'm really annoyed listening to them. Yang Qinshui rolled her eyes. You drove them all away, so this time only Beichen can participate in the competition? Isn't that what you mean? I'm just following your words. You idiot. Yang Qinshui was speechless. They are indeed very annoying. But if we can't even gather enough people for this competition, then we'll also become a joke. She said those words earlier in the hope that these guys would have some idea of what to do, and not keep talking about this matter. However, she didn't expect Yang Lingfeng to be so straightforward, directly driving these guys away, so she softened her tone at the end. So that's not what you meant. Yang Lingfeng belatedly understood. Then what do we do now? What else can we do? Yang Qinshui spread out her hands. Let them be. If they really want to leave, we can't do anything about it. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yang Lingfeng listened to this conversation, feeling helpless and amused at the same time. Qinshui had such a straightforward brother. She must be feeling very helpless. Sorry for the trouble. Yang Qinxue saw Bailey Hongzhuang as soon as she walked upstairs, and she knew that they had probably heard what she said before. So she waved her hand. It's fine. Actually, I don't think their array skills are as good as Beichen's. Anyway, we didn't get any good rankings in the previous array master competition. Even if they leave now, it won't affect the results. Maybe Beichen's results alone are better than all of them combined. Yang Lingfeng comforted himself. You're right. Yang Qinxue nodded, obviously agreeing with this point. In the afternoon, Fan Guangshuan left the group of Qingyang City. Before he left, his face was still filled with resentment. He looked at Di Beichen, as if he wanted nothing more than to kill him directly. Yang Qinxue did not try to stop him, since they had already said so much. If they were to ask him to stay now, Fan Guangshuan would be extremely proud of himself. Rather than keeping such a person alive, it would be better to let him leave. However, to their surprise, Shihai did not leave. They had originally thought that with the relationship between Fan Guangshuan and Shihai, the two of them would definitely leave together. Little did they know that Fan Guangshuan was also very angry about this. He had fully believed that Shihai would leave with him, but he had never thought that Shihai would directly refuse his request. No matter how he tried to persuade him, it was useless. He really could not take this lying down, so he left on his own. I really don't understand, there's no enmity between him and Beichen. Why does it seem like he's angrier than Shen Duanyu? Chapter 6795. Ever since Di Beichen became a participant of Qingyang City, Fan Guangshuan had been making all sorts of sarcastic remarks, and was extremely rude. In comparison, Beichen was the one who had been too lazy to pay attention to him. Who would have thought that this guy would become more and more disagreeable? Perhaps it's because Beichen ignored him that he's even angrier. Yang Lingfeng mused. Compared to hostility, this kind of disregard was even more hurtful. Bailey Hongzhuang. You do have a point. Ignore him. If he leaves, then leave. Save him the trouble of helping others. Yang Qinxue narrowed her eyes. Everything else was fine, but she was more worried that this guy would become a spy for others. That would be the worst. Yang Han was also very calm after learning all this. Clearly, Yang Qinxue had already informed him of this before. Now that we're short of a spot, I'm afraid it'll be a bit troublesome. Yang Qinxue looked at Yang Han with a guilty conscience. Since it's already like this, then forget it. Yang Han was very open-minded. Right now, everyone's attention is on Beichen. Our Qingyang City rarely gets so much attention. It's not bad that we've become famous. Looking at Yang Han's casual appearance, everyone's mood immediately relaxed a lot. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Both of them knew that Yang Han actually hoped that Beichen could achieve good results in this array master competition. He didn't care about the number of people, only the results. As long as Beichen could achieve good results, so what if there were fewer people? He didn't say it out loud, presumably because he didn't want to put pressure on Beichen. Qingli, do you have any other array masters who can participate? Yang Qinxue turned her gaze to Bai Qingli. At present, they had no other place to ask for help other than Shi Yunqing. I'll have to go back and ask. Bai Qingli thought for a moment. They did have some array masters, but their array skills weren't outstanding. Most importantly, Qingyang City could be said to be the most eye-catching team right now. Many people probably wouldn't be willing to join. They couldn't force others on this point. Yang Han patted his shoulder. If you don't want to, then don't force it. It's no big deal. I'll do my best. When Ning Tian came out of the room, the servants immediately went up to her. Master Shen came to see you. He came to find me? What did he say? Ning Tian was surprised. Master Shen is in the next room. Something happened yesterday. I think Master Shen is here because of this. The servant was well informed. In fact, almost everyone knew about such a big matter. However, since Master Shen was here, there was no need for him to say anything. Hearing this, Ning Tian immediately went to the house next door. Why are you looking for me? You're finally out. A smile appeared on Shen Xing's face when she saw Ning Tian. You're in trouble this time. Trouble? Ning Tian was stunned. I haven't even stepped out of the house. What trouble could I have caused? You're fine by yourself, but those two little ones can't even leave the house because of you, Xinxing said in a nonchalant manner. Ning Tian immediately understood. Are you talking about the two little fellows at the market? I heard that you and Bailey girl exchanged for the eternal azure spirit pill. Chapter 6796. It must be that stinking brat under Zhen Gudao. Ning Tian narrowed his eyes, and a trace of anger spread in his heart. When they made the deal that day, there weren't many people paying attention. If it weren't for someone deliberately inquiring, it was impossible to know so much. And in the current situation, apart from Shen Duanyu, no one else would do so. I thought he'd stop after this incident, but now it seems that this brat really likes to cause trouble. Xinxing paid attention to Ning Tian's expression and understood that this guy already had a plan in mind. He continued. Now everyone is saying that Bailey girl used the eternal azure spirit pill formula to bribe you, and I've been dragged into the water and accused of favoritism. What a joke. Ning Tian snorted coldly. Doesn't this mean that Zhen Gudao has been wronged? He really dares to say anything. Now those two little guys don't leave the house, and many people are watching. If you don't deal with this matter properly, I won't let you go. Ning Tian looked at Xinxing and understood that this guy completely regarded Di Beichen as one of his own, so he wouldn't allow him to suffer any grievances. Don't worry, I'll naturally deal with the trouble I caused. I'm going to teach that stinking brat a lesson today. Does he really think that Zhen Gudao can shelter him from the wind and rain? Inside the room, Bailey Hongzhuang was accompanying Di Beichen to study array formations. The competition was going to start the day after tomorrow, and Beichen was also happy to study at this time. The book that Grandmaster Shun gave him was very useful, and some of the introductions in it also enlightened him and benefited a lot. Right at this moment, a stranger appeared at their door. When they saw the newcomer, their bodies instantly tensed up, and they were ready to attack at any time. Young Master D. Miss Bailey, I'm Grandmaster Ning's servant. He asked me to invite you to the market. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly taken aback. In fact, they had always believed that Ning Tian couldn't be doing nothing, but they also felt a little strange that there hadn't been any movement for so long. Now, was Ning Tian finally making a move? Yang Qinshui and Yang Lingfeng also rushed over to join in the fun. After knowing the purpose of their visit, they looked at the servant suspiciously. You're not deliberately tricking us, are you? With Beichen's current situation, if they went out now, they could be targeted at any time. The man chuckled. Even if I had the guts, I wouldn't dare to use Grandmaster Ning's name to swindle others. That's true. Yang Lingfeng nodded slightly. Grandmaster Ning's reputation was no joke. At this moment, Yang Han also came down from upstairs. When he saw the person in front of him, his eyes lit up. What orders does Grandmaster Ning have? Seeing that Yang Han had confirmed the identity of the person, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not doubt him, and immediately followed the man to the market. I wonder why Grandmaster Ning called us over? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. The servant smiled politely. Master has never been someone who would let others suffer losses. He said that this matter was caused by him, so he probably wants to solve it in public. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She was a little curious, not knowing how Grandmaster Ning planned to deal with it. Chapter 6797. The news of Bailey Hongzhuang bribing Ning Tian had been fermenting for a day, and had spread like wildfire throughout the small world. The Eternal Azure Spirit Pill was the pill that everyone paid attention to, coupled with the fact that it was related to Master Ning Tian and Master Xinxing. It was impossible not to pay attention to it. Due to Ning Tian's personality, there were many people who had opinions about him. Now that something like this had happened, many people wanted to hit him while he was down, and take the opportunity to smear his name. Don't be fooled by Ning Tian's sanctimonious appearance. Isn't he doing these little things behind the scenes? The reason why he usually ignores us is probably because he thinks that our gifts aren't good enough. What kind of treasure is the Eternal Azure Spirit Pill? TSK. This news has been out for so long, But there's still no news from Ning Tian. If he didn't have a guilty conscience, he would have come out to clarify things long ago. That's true. I really didn't expect this. When Ning Tian appeared, he heard the discussions around him, and his expression immediately darkened. He had already guessed that these guys wouldn't have anything good to say, but he didn't expect their words to be so unpleasant. The originally noisy scene immediately quieted down with Ning Tian's appearance. The people who were discussing this matter all shut their mouths and didn't dare to say anything else. They were only worried that it would anger Ning Tian. Ning Tian snorted coldly and swept his cold gaze across the crowd. His eyes were filled with disgust. All the cultivators who were swept by this gaze couldn't help but feel guilty. They all averted their gazes and pretended that this matter had nothing to do with them. Ning Tian walked directly to Shen Duanyu's stall. Go and find that stinking brat Shen Duanyu. The cultivators who were looking at the stall were stunned when they heard this. When they looked up and saw that the person who spoke was Ning Tian, they didn't dare to say anything else. They didn't care about the stall and hurriedly ran outside. They were done for. Master Ning had personally come to find trouble. This wasn't something that could be easily resolved. Shen Xing looked at Ning Tian's ferocious appearance, and a faint smile appeared in his eyes. After Shen Duanyu was reprimanded by Zhen Gudao, he didn't go out again. This matter had already angered his master. Naturally, he did not dare to stir up any more trouble in such a situation. Once he made his master unhappy, he would be in a terrible situation. Right at this moment, a flustered voice sounded from outside. Duanyu, I'm afraid this is going to be troublesome. Looking at the panting man, Shen Duanyu's expression changed slightly. What happened? Great Master Ning Tian is looking for you at the market. He wants you to go there now. The man's face was full of worry. I'm afraid that Grandmaster Ning already knows what we've done. What should we do? Shen Duanyu's mind was in a mess for a moment. In fact, he also thought that this matter might be discovered, but he felt that this kind of thing would only make things worse. Even if Master Ning knew about it, he would be helpless. But he didn't think that Master Ning would come directly to him. Don't panic. Shen Duanyu forced himself to calm down. Although we were the ones who released the news, he doesn't have any concrete evidence. Even if it's proven that we were the ones who said it, we'll deny it no matter what. We'll just say that we complained, and there's nothing he can do about it. Chapter 67-98. The originally anxious man calmed down a little when he heard Shen Duanyu's words. He nodded and said, You're right, we're just complaining. It's someone else who spread our words. It has nothing to do with us. You have to deal with this matter properly. You must not implicate us, Shen Duanyu exhorted. The man immediately understood. Don't worry, I'll make them bite this matter to death. Only then did Shen Duanyu relax. However, he did not head to the bazaar immediately. Instead, he went to look for Zhen Gudao. Facing Ning Tian, as a junior, he would be at a disadvantage no matter what. If the other party used force to bully him, he would be completely helpless. However, if Master went, then the situation would be different. Because of the previous incident, Zhen Gudao still did not like Shen Duanyu too much. After all, he had caused him to lose face. However, when he heard Shen Duanyu say that Ning Tian wanted to use this matter to make an issue out of it, Zhen Gudao's face was filled with rage. Ning Tian really doesn't know when to stop. Wasn't it enough that the matter had reached this stage previously? Now, because of such a small matter, he's mustering so many people to call you over. Could it be that he thinks I'm easy to bully? Zhen Gudao's face was ashen. In his rage, he stood up directly. His eyes were burning with rage, and his facial features were practically scrunched together. Shen Duanyu looked at Zhen Gudao's angry appearance, and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did he completely relax. As long as he had Master's support, he did not need to worry too much. Let's go. Zhen Gudao's eyes were filled with a cold light. I'd like to see what Ning Tian wants to do. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others arrived, they found that they had become the focus of everyone's attention almost instantly. Everyone's eyes were filled with curiosity as they focused their attention on them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked forward and noticed the two great masters. In reality, the gazes of the people in the bazaar were either on them or on the two great masters. It was really too easy to distinguish. Ning Tian, whose face had been ashen all this while, as if everyone owed him money, finally smiled when he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and the others appear. Come here. Ning Tian waved at them. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others immediately followed behind Yang Han. As soon as they arrived, Yang Han cupped his hands in greeting. Grandmaster Ning, Grandmaster Shen. Ning Tian nodded slightly. I still have some impression of you. You're the city lord of Qingyang City, right? Yang Han was pleasantly surprised as he heard this. His smile suddenly became even more brilliant. I never thought that Grandmaster Ning would remember me. I'm truly fortunate. Although he was a city lord, there were many cities in the chaotic immortal realm. It was an honor for Master Ning to remember him. You have good taste. Ning Tian glanced at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang, and her impression of Yang Han improved. Not only Ning Tian, but Shen Xing also had a good impression of him. Previously, they had already heard that although Di Beichen had come to participate in the competition, he had not even participated in the array formation master assessment. If it had been anyone else, Di Beichen would never have agreed to let him participate in the competition, but Yang Han did. Just this point alone was enough to show that he had a good eye for people. Chapter 6799. Please enter the text. Yang Han's words were very sincere. Setting aside the fact that Beichen and Hongzhuang were so outstanding, Hongzhuang had saved Ling Feng. Even if they didn't do anything here and cause trouble, he would still stand behind them unconditionally. A faint smile appeared on Shen Xing and Ning Tian's faces upon seeing Yang Han's expression. Grandmaster Ning, may I ask why you called us here? Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked to Master Ning's side. In fact, she had already guessed that Master Ning had called them here to spread the rumor. But after she came, she found that Shen Duanyu was not here, which was a bit strange. What else could it be? It's obviously about that stinking brat's slander. Ning Tian's face darkened. I just went into seclusion to study pills. I didn't think that brat would dare to slander me like this. Bailey Hongzhuang. Grandmaster, you should pay attention to your image. Ahem. Shen Xing coughed dryly as if to remind Ning Tian that they were in full view of everyone. However, Ning Tian didn't seem to receive his reminder at all. Her face was still filled with anger. I've already sent someone to find that stinking brat. He should be here soon. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others waited quietly. With their status, no matter how they tried to explain this matter, it would only make things worse. However, with Grandmaster Ning's appearance, the matter would be easier to resolve. I'm afraid Shen Duanyu is in trouble now. With two Grandmasters appearing together, I'm afraid he won't be able to stop them. Do you think Shen Duanyu is telling the truth or not? Looking at Grandmaster Ning's angry appearance, I don't think that's the case. Who knows? Shen Duanyu is Grandmaster Zhen's disciple. He shouldn't be able to speak without thinking, right? After this incident, no one, no matter if it was the stall owners or the customers, had any interest in buying or selling things. They were just waiting to watch the show. Fan Guangshuan didn't leave the small world after leaving the group in Qingyang City. At this moment, he was also waiting in a corner to watch the show. When he heard that everyone was guessing that Shen Duanyu was trying to frame him, he couldn't help but say, "This is the truth." Otherwise, how could two people with no background be treated so favorably by the great master? You know the inside story. The cultivator beside him looked at Fan Guangshuan curiously. He remembered that he had seen Fan Guangshuan with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others before. Don't be fooled by the fact that these two fellows don't have any background. They're extraordinarily good at scheming behind the scenes. The city lord of Qingyang City has already been completely grasped by them. Their methods of buying people's hearts are simply amazing. Fan Guangshuan's eyes were filled with malice. Before Di Beichen appeared, City Lord Yang and the others had always been extremely polite to him. As soon as this guy appeared, his status plummeted. Because of this fellow, regardless of whether it was the city lord, young miss, or young master, their attitude towards him had greatly changed. Later on, they had even spoken to him in such a manner. He was unwilling to accept this. He had to see Di Beichen fall from grace before he could vent the resentment in his heart. I didn't think it would be like this. I saw that this woman had the appearance of a foxy fox. Looks like I was right. Isn't that right? Who knows if they've used any other methods? Fan Guangshuan sneered. Chapter 6800. Please enter the text. The moment Shen Duanyu appeared, everyone's gazes landed on him. However, when everyone noticed Jin Gudao behind him, each and every one of their expressions became interesting. With the three masters gathered together, the following excitement would probably be unprecedentedly exciting. When Ning Tian noticed the two people walking over, a trace of coldness appeared in her eyes. Zhen Gudao, this guy is really protective of his children, rushing over so quickly. He's always been like this. A trace of coldness also appeared in the eyes of the usually amiable Shen Xing when he saw that figure. His deep eyes became unfathomable, with a faint storm sweeping through. Zhen Gudao brought Shen Duanyu to a stop in front of Ning Tian. The moment he opened his mouth, his tone was not polite at all. Ning Tian, why are you looking for my disciple? Seeing that the other party still dared to denounce her at a time like this, Ning Tian also sneered. Why am I looking for your disciple? Why don't you ask him what he did? Don't give me that. The previous matter has already been resolved. If you want to announce it to the world, it's up to you. If you still want to cause trouble because of this matter, I won't just stand by and watch. Zhen Gudao's aura was tyrannical. The previous matter had caused him to suffer a loss, and he had not been able to calm down for 2 consecutive days. Now that this guy was looking for trouble again, he naturally would not continue to be in the wrong. Don't pretend to be sanctimonious. Ning Tian lazily threw out a sentence. Facing the righteous and outspoken Zhen Gudao, she directly gave him a pretentious evaluation. It was just a simple word, but it immediately caused Zhen Gudao to break down. What am I pretending to be? You know very well in your heart. Ning Tian's face was full of disdain. You didn't succeed in slandering yourself, so you want to trap all of us. Why don't you think about how big your face is? Are you worthy? Are you worthy? The provocative words, coupled with Ning Tian's extremely arrogant expression, were simply destructive. Zhen Gudao's face alternated between green and white. His chest rapidly rose and fell due to his anger, as if he had countless words to refute, but for a moment, he did not know what to say. This kind of feeling was similar to a scholar meeting a soldier, unable to reason with him clearly. Grandmaster Ning, is his personality usually so fiery? Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head to look at Yang Qinxue. Although she had already expected that Master Ning wouldn't be so kind after encountering such a situation. But this kind of explosive power, it really didn't seem like something a master would do. Not to mention that Jin Gudao couldn't win against Ning Tian. Even if Shen Xing and Jin Gudao worked together, their combat strength still couldn't compare to Ning Tian. Yang Qinshue's lips twitched as she said, "This is probably what they mean by, those who have nothing to lose are not afraid of those who wear shoes." Zhen Gudao still cared about his status as a grandmaster in front of everyone, so even though his words were filled with anger, they were always reasonable and not too excessive. But Ning Tian clearly didn't fall into this category. He didn't care about this at all. But this personality, I quite like it. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. She could already see the characteristics of such a master's personality when she exchanged with him earlier. Ning Tian, don't go too far. Zhen Gudao was unable to restrain his rage and simply almost fainted from this anger. Chapter 6801. Please enter the text. I've provoked you? Zhen Gudao was about to die from anger. From beginning to end, this entire matter had nothing to do with Ning Tian. Alright? Now Shen Xing was simply the one who stood out. You've already dealt with the previous matter, and now you're looking for my disciple to settle scores. You're the unreasonable ones. At the same time, Shen Duanyu's face was pale, and his expression was full of worry. I've already apologized for the previous matter, and I definitely won't accuse others so easily in the future. Isn't that enough? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. Shen Duanyu, this brat, was quite good at retreating in order to advance. Unfortunately, If this kind of play was used against Shen Xing, there might be some possibility, but against Ning Tian. Stop pretending, you stinking brat. A man still has the nerve to pretend to be wronged. I simply want to beat you up. Ning Tian's face was full of disgust. Shen Duanyu was completely dumbfounded. He had already decided to come today, to pretend to be innocent. No matter what the other party said, he just had to deny it to death. But this Master Ning's personality, wasn't it a little too strange? The matter that day has already been investigated clearly. There's nothing wrong with Di Baichen's array stone. The reason we didn't directly drive you out of the Array Masters Association is already showing mercy to your subordinates. But you're still not satisfied. You actually said that Shen Xing, and I took bribes to help them target you. Ning Tian sneered. Who do you think you are? With my status, do I need to target a small fry like you? As Ning Tian's voice fell, Zhen Gudao's expression also changed a little. So Ning Tian didn't call Shen Duanyu back today for the previous matter. But for another matter? Shen Duanyu's expression changed slightly. This matter has nothing to do with me. Zhen Gudao, your disciple is truly incredible. Ning Tian raised his eyebrows and sneered. You still refuse to admit it at such a time. Ning Tian, don't speak nonsense without evidence. What evidence do you have to prove that this matter was leaked by Duanyu? If I say it's him, then it's him. Do I need evidence? Ning Tian said disdainfully. You. Simply unreasonable. Zhen Gudao was furious. This was the reason why he was usually unwilling to provoke this guy. Because this guy was completely unreasonable. No matter what he said, he couldn't win against him. Instead, he was angering himself to death. At this moment, Shen Xing also spoke up. Originally, that matter had already been resolved. But this news was later released, saying that Ning Tian had accepted a bribe from Bailey Hongzhuang and was trying to frame us. Anyone with a brain would be able to figure out who was the one who had spread the news. It doesn't really matter whether you admit it or not. Shen Xing's expression was calm and composed as if this matter had nothing to do with him at all. However, it was that calm tone that made the final decision, directly concluding that this matter was related to Shen Duanyu. Zhen Gudao slowly glanced at Shen Duanyu. Although he originally didn't know about this matter, based on his understanding of Shen Duanyu, it was very likely that he was the culprit. This guy was simply an idiot. Not only had he wronged Di Baichen, but he had also wronged the two masters. Even a fool would know that the consequences were not something he could bear. Chapter 6802. Please enter the text. If I had to protect one person just because of a pill formula, then I don't know how many people I would have to protect all these years. Ning Tian's sharp gaze seemed to be able to see through one's soul. Under such a gaze, Shen Duanyu could only lower his head. This feeling of having nowhere to hide caused him to break down. He had originally made up his mind to deny it, but in this kind of situation, it seemed so meaningless. This was the difference in the background of the two sides. The other party was a grandmaster. No matter what he said, it would seem to be true, while all his explanations would seem to be just sophistry. Since you like to say that I'm protecting them so much, then fine. Ning Tian's voice paused slightly. Everyone also looked at him in confusion, not understanding what he meant by this. Then I'll do as you wish. Everyone listen up. Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang are my people from now on. If anyone dares to have any ideas about them, then they're going against me. I can ignore the previous stalking and following, but if something like this happens again in the future, I'll let him know what the price is. Ning Tian's voice was not very loud, but these words carried an unparalleled domineering aura when they came out of his mouth. Everyone could even feel a dense murderous aura. The cultivators who had been thinking about how to snatch the pill formulas from Bailey Hongzhuang's hands almost instantly gave up on that idea, because the price of offending Ning Tian was far greater than the value of the two pill formulas. Shen Duanyu raised his head in shock. The reason he had released this news was to let everyone target Di Baichen and Shen Duanyu. As for involving Ning Tian, on one hand, he wanted to vent his anger for himself. On the other hand, he wanted to make his master happier. However, He had never thought that his actions would instead help Bailey Hongzhuang and Shen Duanyu find a backer. Although Ning Tian was usually not very outstanding, and everyone usually knew more about Shen Xing and Zhen Gudao, those who knew more about them knew that Ning Tian was the most difficult person to provoke among the three of them. Not only was he a formation master, but he was also an alchemist. In addition, it was said that his background was also unfathomable. It was precisely because of this that his personality was so eccentric, but no one dared to offend him. Now that Ning Tian had said something like that in front of everyone, it was obvious that she was determined to protect Di Beichen. Fan Guangshuan had been waiting for a good show. He did not believe that the two masters would really protect Di Beichen. However, when he heard these words, his expression instantly became extremely ugly, as if he had eaten mustard. Since Ning Tian had said so in front of everyone, there was no way she could change her mind. Di Beichen had only come to the market to set up a stall, and he had gained such a strong backing. What kind of luck was this? When Shi Hai and the others saw this scene, they could not help but feel shocked. Fortunately, he did not leave with Fan Guangshuan. From the previous point of view, Di Beichen's status was simply not comparable to Shen Duanyu's. But after Master Ning's words, the situation was completely different. Di Beichen and Shen Duanyu's status had changed. Their status had clearly surpassed Shen Duanyu's. Furthermore, from Ning Tian's performance, he was much more protective than Zhen Gudao. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. This situation had clearly exceeded their expectations. They never thought that it would be resolved like this. Chapter 6803. Because Ning Tian's words were too intimidating and effective, the entire bazaar fell into a strange silence. What followed was the exclamations of the crowd. Burning gazes fell on Di Beichen and Ning Tian, thinking that these two fellows' luck was too good. Normally, they would try their best to establish a relationship with these two masters, but it was completely useless. These two fellows had only come to the Formation Master competition for the first time, and they had already become Master Ning's direct disciples. This speed was really amazing. However, everyone's gazes fell on Shen Duanyu. This whole thing really couldn't have been separated from his assistants. If it weren't for Shen Duanyu, Di Beichen and Ning Tian would have only met once and had some impression of Ning Tian. However, because of this pill formula, everyone was staring at Di Beichen and Ning Tian. If Ning Tian hadn't stood up, they probably wouldn't have been able to keep their lives. Now that Ning Tian had stood up, the effect was really enviable. Shen Duanyu's face was pale at first, but when he realized what all this meant, his face had already become deathly pale. He simply couldn't understand how this perfectly fine matter had turned out like this. It was completely different from what he had imagined. Ning Tian's gaze turned to Zhen Gudao, and he said, "Don't say that I didn't give you face. If it weren't for you, this brat would have disappeared from this world long ago." He turned to look at the pale-faced Shen Duanyu, and said, "It's useless to play these tricks in front of me. If you have the ability, then show it openly. I've stayed in the chaotic immortal realm for so many years, and I've never seen anyone who could rely on these little tricks to ascend." Ning Tian only felt that this gaze was directly stabbing into his spine, and his body was somewhat unsteady. This time, he had really done all this for nothing. What you do is your business. Let's go. Zhen Gudao's face was cold. Due to Ning Tian's background, he couldn't directly attack Ning Tian. Continuing to stand here was nothing but a joke. It was better to just leave. Shen Duanyu hurriedly followed behind Zhen Gudao and left. Even after they had walked far away, he still felt that the gaze behind him hadn't dissipated. Yang Qinxue and the others all smiled at the same time. It was a blessing in disguise, wasn't it? Yesterday, they were still extremely worried about whether or not they would be ambushed on the road. They didn't expect the situation to be completely reversed today. Even if everyone knew that this pill formula was in their hands, the average person would not dare to take the risk to find trouble. It was good to lean against a big tree and enjoy the shade. This kind of thing was the same no matter where. Many thanks to Grandmaster Ning for helping us out. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen thanked him. Ning Tian waved his hand. "This whole thing started because of me. I thought those guys would keep their mouths shut, but I didn't expect them to be a bunch of useless people. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood that Ning Tian's way of explaining the situation was to confirm her claim. When most people encountered such a situation, they would think about how to explain the situation clearly. However, Ning Tianzi was completely different. His attitude was that this was how it was, and what could they do about it? However, it had to be said that the effect of this kind of solution was indeed extraordinary. Xin Xing smiled and said, "Don't worry. Although this guy's words aren't very nice, his words are still very useful." Chapter 6804. Thank you, Grandmaster Shen. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Even she felt that their luck was extraordinarily good. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang are incredible. In the blink of an eye, they have two grandmasters backing them. Won't Di Beichen have a meteoric rise in the ranks of array masters in the future? I just remembered that I know Qingyang City Shihai. I have to find a way to make friends with him. Qingyang City is in the limelight this time. They haven't had any achievements in array formations for so many years. Now that they've finally achieved something, they'll be incredible in the future. At that moment, everyone understood that even if Qingyang City couldn't achieve anything in the competition this time, they definitely wouldn't be last place like before. Most of the time, it was this one thing that could change everything. Fan Guangshuan stood in place in a daze and couldn't help but regret his decision to leave. If he hadn't left, he would have been the target of everyone's flattery. But now, it was like a joke. Why hadn't Shihai left? At that moment, Fan Guangshuan suddenly realized that he was the one who had suffered the most from the beginning. Bailey lass, I've studied your pill after I went back. Did you increase the effect of the pill after adding the blood demon crystal? After dealing with the matter, Ning Tian's interest was piqued. He'd been studying the pill since he'd returned yesterday, so he was very clear about its composition. However, knowing the composition and refining it were two different things. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. That's right. Blood demon crystals actually have such an effect. It's really surprising. Ning Tian's eyes were filled with interest. I've heard of people trying to use blood demon crystals to refine elixirs. However, the elixirs they refined were not as effective as yours. Furthermore, there were very few types of elixirs. I saw that they had only achieved this result after tinkering for so long, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. However, whether it is the type or the medicinal effect of your pill, it is different from theirs. Does this mean that this method will work on other pills? At this point, not only Ning Tian, but even Xin Xing's eyes were filled with anticipation. Indeed, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I have tried to refine several kinds of pills. As long as the blood demon crystal is chosen correctly, and the refining method is right, it will succeed. Is that so? Ning Tian's eyes lit up. This was a huge discovery in alchemy. The refining method is. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was about to tell Ning Tian the method, the latter suddenly raised her hand. Don't tell me. Let me figure it out myself. It's not easy to come across something interesting. Naturally, I have to do some research on my own. Ning Tian smiled. Normally, I'm a little bored. You don't have to worry about it. He's always liked to research things on his own, Xin Xing said with a faint smile. If you tell him directly, he'll find it boring. Bailey Hongzhuang. Ning Tian was a master who never played by the rules. The competition is going to begin the day after tomorrow. Are you ready? Shen Xing turned to Di Beichen. I'm going to do my best, Di Beichen replied. Shen Xing nodded. With your power of understanding, as long as you spend some time researching, your results will definitely not be bad. Shen Duanyu looked at Zheng Gudao in astonishment. This was his first time seeing his master throw such a huge tantrum. Master, I really won't dare to do it again, Shen Duanyu said in a panic. For some reason, he had an ominous premonition. This feeling made him panic for no reason, and his heart turned cold. Indeed, there won't be a next time. Zheng Gudao calmed down somewhat, his gaze becoming resolute. Shen Duanyu looked up in astonishment. Master, what do you mean? From today onwards, you are no longer my disciple. Zheng Gudao's expression was indifferent, and his cold voice did not contain the slightest bit of warmth. All of the master-disciple relationship had already dissipated like smoke in his eyes at this moment. After Shen Duanyu heard these words, it was as if he had been struck by lightning. He looked at Zheng Gudao in disbelief. For a moment he only thought that he must have heard wrongly. When you were at a disadvantage, it was already good enough that people did not hit you when you were down. However, once you held your head high, the situation would be completely different. Not to mention whether Qingyang City would be able to achieve good results in the competition this time. As long as they were able to establish this relationship, it would already be extremely good. Should we spread the news? Yang Qinxue asked. No need. Yang Han's voice suddenly rang out. The situation is different now. If we release the news at this time and invite others to participate, it will make us seem arrogant because we are favored. It will be very disadvantageous for us to purposely ride on the fame of the two masters. Chapter 6807. As Yang Han's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and felt that what he said was very reasonable. If it were any other day, it would be extremely difficult to find an array master to participate in the competition. If the news were to spread now, it was likely that some of the more powerful array masters would come. This matter might not be a big deal to them, but if it made the two masters unhappy, it would not be worth it. Anyway, no matter what the result was this time, they were already famous. Uncle is right. It is indeed not suitable to do this now. Bai Qingli replied. Then we might as well participate in the competition with two people. Yang Lingfeng agreed. In fact, he was also unwilling to recruit others from the bottom of his heart. This kind of hypocrisy makes me feel annoyed just by looking at it. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. This kind of thing was a matter of Qingyang City. The city lord could make the decision, and they had no objections. Then it's decided. Yang Han smiled. This time, he no longer cared about the results of the competition, because just getting to know the two masters was already very worth it. At this moment, Di Beichen suddenly said, If that's the case, why don't we let Hongzhuang participate? As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. They looked at Di Beichen in astonishment, their minds a little muddled. Ah! Yang Lingfeng was dumbfounded. You're saying to let Hongzhuang participate? But she's an alchemist. Yang Qinxue was also puzzled. Could it be that Hongzhuang knows array techniques? Bai Qingli's reaction was slightly better than the two of them, but her face was still full of doubt. Beichen. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen in confusion. She did not expect him to make such a suggestion. Hongzhuang has also learned array techniques, but her main focus is not in this area. Di Beichen explained slowly. His deep black eyes were like the ocean at night, carrying a little ripple. Since we're short of a place and we're not willing to find one from outside, why don't we let her try? As a kind of experience. I'm afraid I can't do that. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little embarrassed. When Beichen was learning array techniques, she had also been learning from him. However, just as he said, she spent most of her time studying alchemy. Her skill in alchemy was obviously incomparable to Beichen's. You know a lot of array formations, and the real effects you create aren't bad. Di Beichen's eyes were gentle. Haven't you always been interested in it? After hearing all this, Yang Han had no choice but to reveal a deep smile in his eyes. I didn't expect Hongzhuang to also know array techniques. Since that's the case, you'll take this spot in the competition. No matter how good your array techniques are. As long as you have the certificate, it's fine. Anyway, the empty spot is empty. When the final ranking of the city is calculated, the total score will be taken into account. It's better to participate than not. As long as you participate, your score will be higher. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also fell into hesitation. She did not expect that the final ranking of the city would be calculated based on the total score. Hong Zhuang, if you're interested, you can try it out. Anyway, everyone knows that you're an alchemist. Even if you don't perform well, it doesn't matter. Yang Qinxue said. In this kind of situation, everyone would at most laugh at their city for not having an array master. They would not be too harsh on Hong Zhuang. Chapter 6808. If you don't want to participate, then forget it. Di Beichen lowered his head and said gently. Bailey Hong Zhuang raised her head and looked at the man's tilted head. His beautiful eyes were like thousands of pear blossoms, filled with endless warmth. She had always understood that Beichen had never wanted to force her. He had only suggested this because she was also interested in array techniques. Apart from refining pills, she would spend the rest of her time studying array techniques with Beichen, just like how Beichen would sometimes study pill refining with her. Beichen is right. Hong Zhuang, don't feel pressured. This isn't a big deal in the first place. Yang Lingfeng spread out his hands. Our city has always been at the bottom of the rankings. No matter how bad it is, it can't be any worse than before. Yang Han silently glanced at his son. This guy really didn't give him any face when he spoke. Bailey Hong Zhuang slowly raised her head, the corners of her lips slightly raised. All right then. You agree? Yang Lingfeng asked excitedly. Bailey Hong Zhuang nodded. I just hope that you won't be sad when my skills fall short. Don't worry, that won't happen. Yang Lingfeng waved his hand casually. In the blink of an eye, the Array Master competition finally began. On this day, Di Beichen and the others had already gotten up early and followed Yang Han to the location of the competition. Ever since Ning Tian had made the announcement in front of everyone, the door to Qingyang City's residence had been practically broken open. Many people came to visit City Lord Yang every day, trying to befriend Di Beichen and Yang Lingfeng as well. Almost everyone living in the residence had become a hot commodity in everyone's eyes. It was worth mentioning that after this change, they also noticed Fan Guangshuan's figure loitering near the residence. They could see his regret from the hesitation on his face, but no one paid him any attention. For a fence-sitter like him, even if he was allowed to blend in, his nature would not change in the future. It would only happen again. I've already changed the contestant's name card. Hong Zhuang's name card has already been handed over. A smile appeared on Yang Han's face. Changing contestants also required a process. If it was in the past, he would definitely encounter many obstacles when doing such a thing. However, when he went to handle this matter yesterday, he found that the situation was completely different from usual. Everything was unusually smooth, and there was almost no need for him to do anything. The matter had already been resolved. City Lord Yang, do you know how the competition will proceed? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. Originally, she wasn't too worried about this, because Beichen's strength was unquestionable. Now that she was going to participate in the competition, she couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Although the rules of the competition are different every time, there are generally two types of rules. Usually, all the arrays are made of the same type of array stone, and then the score will be judged based on the quality of the array stone. Then will the grade of the array stone be high? Bailey Hongzhuang asked curiously. Her array skills were a level lower than Beichen's, so if she wanted to make a high-grade array stone, wouldn't it be terrible if she wasn't skilled enough? Chapter 6809. As the group of people arrived at the competition venue, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but be shocked as she looked at the huge stage in front of her. The area of the martial arts stage was far larger than they had imagined. At this moment, the circular spectator stands around the martial arts stage were already filled with people. Their appearance was like a drop in the ocean, so small that they couldn't cause any ripples. Master, I seem to have underestimated the scale of the competition. Xiaohe looked around. Under such circumstances, standing on the stage would attract the attention of thousands of people. There are many cities in the chaotic immortal realm. The number of participants in the competition must be very shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were dark and gloomy. Such a big event was like a huge stage. It was extremely difficult to get a ranking here. However, they had obviously underestimated their influence. When the group from Qingyang City appeared, quite a few people noticed their existence. Everything that had happened in the past few days had already spread like wildfire. Even those who were not well informed had heard a little bit of it, so one could imagine the effect it had on them. Brother Yang over here. Bai Ziyuan waved at Yang Han from the high platform not far away. The empty seats beside him were obviously reserved for them. Yang Han smiled faintly and led the group over. You guys are in the limelight this time. As soon as they arrived, Bai Ziyuan's voice filled with emotion rang out. This is all thanks to Beichen and Hong Zhuang. I'm just taking advantage of the limelight. Yang Han spread out his hands. In fact, all of this had nothing to do with him. It was all because of the two little guys. Bai Ziyuan's eyes were full of envy. He also wanted to make friends with the two masters. However, there were too many people trying to find ways to make friends with them. It was very difficult for him to show his face in front of the two masters. Yang Han didn't need to say anything. When he thought back to when Beichen wanted to participate in the competition, he couldn't help but regret it. If he had known this would happen, he would have let Beichen participate even if he had to give up all the spots. Unfortunately, he could only keep this gloominess in his heart. However, it was still very good that Beichen was representing Qingyang City in the competition. Oh right, look over there. Bai Ziyuan raised his eyebrows and gestured at the spectators stand diagonally opposite. Everyone looked in that direction and discovered that Zheng Gudao was currently on that viewing platform. However, the people standing beside him were all people they did not recognize, and there was no sign of Shen Duanyu. What's going on? Yang Lingfeng was a little puzzled. Could it be that Shen Duanyu's punishment was so severe that he didn't want to participate this time? I don't think so. His mastery of formations is quite good, otherwise he wouldn't have been accepted as a disciple by Grandmaster Zhen. Yang Qinxue said hesitantly. Bai Ziyuan chuckled and looked to the other side. Shen Duanyu is over there. Di Beichen turned his gaze and discovered that Shen Duanyu was at a place rather far away from Zheng Gudao, and that hateful gaze of Shen Duanyu's landed on him. Casually glancing over, Di Beichen calmly shifted his line of sight. This guy's anger did not affect him in the slightest. Chapter 68:10. It's already like this, don't tell me you still can't guess? Shen Duanyu is no longer a disciple of Zheng Gudao? Yang Han asked. Bai Ziyuan nodded slightly. It is said that after Grandmaster Ning caused such a ruckus, Zheng Gudao directly expelled Shen Duanyu from the sect. Although this news was covered up by them, there is no such thing as an airtight wall, so it inevitably spread. Shen Duanyu is usually so arrogant because he climbed up this big tree, Zheng Gudao. Now that he no longer has this backing, with his usual arrogant appearance, I'm afraid he will have a lot of trouble. Bai Qingli's tone was cold and indifferent. The reason why he had fallen to such a state was all because he had walked step by step. Serves him right. Xiao Bai sneered, his face full of joy. At this moment, a voice sounded from behind them. Brother Yang, the effect of your eternal azure spirit pill is really excellent. Everyone turned their heads and saw a familiar figure. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others did not know this person, but they knew that this person had appeared in their residence before. City Lord Lu, what a coincidence. Lu Yifan looked at Yang Han with a smile. I came here today to thank you. Thank you? Yang Han was a little puzzled. Lu Yifan nodded slightly, unable to hide the excitement on his face. I have been trapped in this realm for a long time, unable to find the threshold to break through. But who would have thought that after taking this eternal azure spirit pill, I actually faintly felt the existence of a bottleneck. As soon as these words came out, Yang Han and the others were dumbfounded. As city lords, their strength was actually not much different. For so many years, not only Lu Yifan, but all of them had never slacked off in their cultivation. But wanting to take another step forward was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Their origin chi was constantly gathering, but their dantian was like a river that flowed into the sea. There was no day when it was filled. However, Lu Yifan had actually touched a bottleneck, which meant that there was hope for him to break through. Then I really must congratulate City Lord Lu. Yang Han cupped his hands in congratulations, but he could not help feeling envious. For them, even a trace of an opportunity to break through was incomparably precious. This is all thanks to City Lord Yang's generosity. Otherwise, I don't know when I would have the chance to touch peace. Lu Yifan smiled proudly. If you need this Lu's help in the future, just say the word and this Lu will do his best. City Lord Lu, you're too polite. Actually, I'm just doing you a favor. This medicinal pill was refined by Miss Bailey. Yang Han gestured to Bailey Hongzhuang, who was beside him. He could not take the credit for such a big contribution. Moreover, he had already noticed that from the moment Lu Yifan appeared, his gaze had fallen on Hongzhuang from time to time. Lu Yifan's eyes lit up as he heard this. So this is Miss Bailey. Since ancient times, heroes have always come from the young. For Miss Bailey to have such achievements at such a young age, it's no wonder that she won the favor of Grandmaster Ning. Mayor Lu, you flatter me. Bailey Hongzhuang cupped her hands and said, I really have to thank you for this medicinal pill. If you have time in the future, you must come to our Ninghua city as a guest. Lu Yifan sincerely invited. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Many thanks for City Lord Lu's kindness. If there is a chance, we will definitely come. Chapter 68:11. Only after Lu Yifan left did Bailey Hongzhuang and the others take their seats. Hongzhuang, Brother Yang sold all of your Eternal Azure Spirit pills to the other city lords. I didn't even have the time to buy them. If you still have them, you have to leave one for me. My price will definitely not be lower than anyone else's. No, I can offer a higher price. Bai Ziyuan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with an extremely serious expression. When he first heard the news, he wanted to buy one, but when he thought about how terrible Qingyang City's situation was at that time, he couldn't help but think about it. Selling the Eternal Azure Spirit pills at a time like this was also to build a good relationship with the other cities. Naturally, he couldn't buy them at a time like this. Originally, he thought that once he had the chance, he would definitely mention this matter to Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that Lu Yifan said this, he was even more eager. He had been stuck in this realm for too long. If the Eternal Azure Spirit pills could help Lu Yifan reach the threshold, perhaps it could also help him reach this step. Yang Han's eyes were also burning with passion. The effects of this pill seemed to be better than they thought. Seeing how serious Bai Ziyuan was, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and said, City Lord Bai, don't worry. Once I go back and refine the Eternal Azure Spirit pills, it will be fine. Originally, I only had a few Eternal Azure Spirit pills, but due to the situation, I gave them to City Lord Yang. After coming to this small world, I've been quite busy, so I can't take care of these things for the time being. As long as I have time, I will do it as soon as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with a gentle smile. She was very clear about the effects of this pill. The longer a cultivator cultivated, the better the effects would be. Once their yuan qi became purer, their strength would increase. Hearing this, Bai Ziyuan was relieved and his eyes were filled with gratitude. Then I'll thank you in advance. City Lord Bai. There's no need to be so polite. On the high platform, the leader of the city lords, Qin Jian, had already appeared. Welcome everyone to the Decennial Array Master Competition. I am Qin Jian. As soon as Qin Jian spoke, the originally bustling spectator stands immediately fell silent. Numerous gazes looked towards Qin Jian in unison. This year's array formation competition will be presided over by me and 5 other array formation grandmasters. In a fair and just manner, we will select the most outstanding young array formation grandmasters. The city you represent will also receive glory because of your performance. The top 100 array masters will receive a common reward from all the major cities. The top 10 cultivators will be given the opportunity to comprehend the tablet, as well as cultivation resources and books on array techniques. The top 30 cultivators will be given extremely precious cultivation resources and books on array techniques. The 31st to 100th cultivators will be given abundant cultivation resources. I hope that everyone will be able to perform at their best. Qin Jian briefly announced the rewards. The Array Formation Master Competition had been held for many years. Everyone knew the significance of this competition, so there was no need to mention it. Even so, the Array Masters who were about to participate in the competition couldn't help but look forward to it after hearing about the rich rewards. This wasn't just a chance to become famous. At the same time, as long as they could grasp this opportunity, just the cultivation resources alone would be enough for them to advance further. Shen Duanyu clenched his fists tightly and looked determined. This Array Formation Master Competition was his only chance. Chapter 68:12. As long as he could grasp the opportunity, he believed that there would still be city lords who would value his talent and extend an olive branch to him. Duanyu, you can definitely do it. Shen Duanyu nodded slightly, and his gaze unconsciously turned towards Di Beichen. A sinister look appeared on his face once again. He wanted to see what kind of results this guy could achieve. Ning Tian, your foresight is only so. On the high platform, the 5 grandmasters also appeared one by one. Shen Xing, Ning Tian, and Zheng Gudao were among them. In addition, there were 2 other grandmasters who were also highly respected. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the 5 grandmasters on the high platform and understood why their matter had caused such a big commotion. There were only 5 grandmasters in total as judges, and their matter directly involved 3 grandmasters. It was impossible not to attract attention. Thinking about it carefully, as Zheng Gudao's disciple, Shen Duanyu did indeed have the right to be proud. Just in terms of his teachings, ordinary array masters could not compare to him at all. Next, the participating array masters can walk up to the high platform. Tables had already appeared on the high platform. Even though the large platform was filled with tables, it still looked very spacious. Bailey Hongzhuang only took a rough look at the tables and understood that there must be more than 1,000 array masters participating in this competition. Wanting to enter the top 100 meant that at least 1 out of 10 people had to be chosen. It was indeed not easy to stand out. Fortunately, her mentality was very calm. Participating in this competition was more for the sake of gaining experience and understanding. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, and Shihai walked up to the high platform together. The circular high platform was surrounded by several stairs. One array master after another walked down from the stands and walked up to the high platform in an orderly manner. After walking up to the high platform, Bailey Hongzhuang realized that the positions had already been marked. Even though there were many chairs on the high platform at this moment, they still quickly found the position that belonged to them. When Ning Tian and Shen Xing noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang had actually appeared on the high platform with Di Beichen, surprise appeared in their eyes. According to their understanding, Bailey Hongzhuang was an alchemist, not an array master. Wasn't it strange for her to appear here during the Array Formation Master Competition? Just what kind of state has this Qingyang city fallen to now that even alchemists have come to make up the numbers to participate in the Formation Master Competition? How laughable! Zheng Gudao naturally noticed this as well, and he did not hold back in his ridicule. Even if an alchemist came to participate, his results would be much better than a certain someone's incompetent disciple. Chapter 68:13. Zheng Gudao didn't know much about Di Beichen's array skills, but from the information he heard, Di Beichen was indeed a cultivator who had just ascended. If it weren't for Ning Tian and Shen Tian, no one would have noticed his existence at all. In the end, all of this was instigated by Shen Duanyu. I'm just reminding you, but an alchemist came to participate in the Array Master competition. Aren't you relying on your reputation? You're already so old. If you're still being used by 2 youngsters in the end, that would be a real joke. After Zheng Gudao said this, he directly shifted his gaze. Shen Xing and Ning Tian looked at each other, and their feelings were a little complicated. They didn't expect this situation, and they didn't know why Bailey Hongzhuang thought of participating today. Maybe this Bailey girl is like me, dabbling in both array skills and alchemy? Ning Tian raised her eyebrows. It wasn't that there weren't cultivators who studied both at the same time, but it was relatively rare. According to the pills that Bailey Hongzhuang refined, her alchemy skills were undoubtedly extremely outstanding. As for her attainments in array skills, it wasn't clear. That should be the case. Shen Xing nodded slightly. Since Bailey Hongzhuang chose to participate in the competition, she was naturally proficient in array skills. However, she had just ascended and put more energy into alchemy, so her array skills could be imagined. After all the array masters stood in their respective positions, Qin Jian's voice sounded again. This competition is divided into 3 stages. In the first stage, all the array masters will create the basic array stones together. The types of array stones will be set by the 5 masters. I will choose one of them as the topic of this competition. Bailey Hongzhuang revealed a look of understanding after hearing this topic. Everything was as City Lord Yang said. Most of the first questions were like this. The 5 array masters randomly wrote down the topic, rolled it up, and put it into the lottery tube. Qin Jian randomly picked one from it, opened it, and raised it up. The topic also appeared in everyone's sight. The topic of the first question is Killing Array, a first-grade killing array. The same array stones had already been prepared for everyone. The effects of a first-grade killing array were the same, but the manufacturing process and quality would be different. This stage was to compare the quality of the array stones created by the array masters. The duration of the competition is 1 hour, and each person only has 3 chances. After the production is completed, the final result will be judged by the detector. I now announce the start of the first round of the competition. As Qin Jian's voice fell, the atmosphere on the high platform suddenly changed. Everyone's eyes fell on the formation stone in front of them. Creating the formation stones required mental energy. Chapter 68:14. The entire competition ground gradually quieted down. Everyone's gaze landed on the formation masters, who were focused on making formation stones on the high platform. The result of every round was related to the final result. Even though every formation master could pass the first round, it was precisely because of this simple question that it often reflected the differences between formation masters. According to past experience, any formation master who could stand out in this round would usually achieve a higher result than the other formation masters. This was because all formations were layered on top of basic formations. The more solid the foundation, the better the effects of the formations created. Shen Duanyu confidently began to make formation stones. He already knew that the first round's test would be this. Even though there would be a total of 5 formations, and he wasn't sure which one it was, he had already practiced all 5 formations well before this. Back then, Zheng Gudao had even helped him inspect the formation stones he made, and had even obtained approval. Therefore, the first round wasn't difficult for him at all. Even though the competition time was less than an hour, in reality, it didn't take long for formation masters to finish making formation stones. This time was very ample for everyone. Bailey Hongzhuang was completely focused on making formation stones. Her mental power didn't relax at all. Every step was completed according to Senior Zhong Li's previous guidance. Her formation skills had also received guidance from Senior Zhong Li, but she spent more time learning from the books left behind by Beichen and Senior He Shinjun. During the year in the abandoned Immortal Forest, they had been doing their best to learn almost every day. They didn't dare to relax at all. Since she had chosen to participate in the competition today, she had to bring out her best abilities. Even if she couldn't get a place, she had to at least try her best, so that she wouldn't have any regrets. When she noticed that many formation masters around her had already finished making their first formation stones, Bailey Hongzhuang was still calm and unhurried. She worked slowly and completely immersed herself in making formation stones. Look, Beichen's formation stones are also finished. Yang Lingfeng noticed that Di Beichen was very familiar with the process, and calmly made the array stone. He quietly breathed a sigh of relief. Although he also understood Di Beichen's strength and knew that there should not be any problems in the first level, it was inevitable that there would be some apprehension. Everyone's gazes turned to Di Beichen. After seeing the confident smile on his face, everyone felt relieved. They didn't know what Beichen's array formation was like, but if it could get the approval of 2 masters, it must be very outstanding. Almost everyone is done, but Hong Zhuang's first array stone is not complete yet. Yang Qinxue noticed Bailey Hongzhuang beside Di Beichen. She was still making the first array stone. Hearing this, everyone had mixed feelings. They all knew that Hong Zhuang wasn't very good at this, but it's still early. Even if Hong Zhuang's speed is a little slow, as long as she can finish within the time limit, it won't be a problem, Yang Lingfeng said with a smile. Look, why did Beichen stop after making the first array stone? Bai Qingli looked up in surprise. Many formation masters would start making the second one after making the first one. Chapter 68:15. Everyone looked at him, and sure enough, while everyone else was busy making the second array stone, Di Beichen really stopped and had no intention of continuing to make it. Did we forget to remind Beichen? Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng looked at each other. They had participated in the array formation master competition several times, so they were very familiar with the rules. However, they had forgotten that Beichen and the others were not very clear about the rules. They had thought that this was the most basic thing that they did not need to mention. However, it seemed like they really did not mention it. I completely forgot about this. Yang Lingfeng looked embarrassed. In the lower realms, they only needed to make 1 array stone. However, the rules of the competition in the chaotic immortal realm were slightly different. They had forgotten to remind him. Then what should we do? Yang Qinxue was stunned. We have no way to remind him now. Don't worry. Yang Han looked at his anxious children and waved his hand. Beichen is so smart. He knows what he is doing. Making 1 more array stone is just to be safe. Who knows? Maybe his first array stone is already so outstanding that he doesn't need to make a second one. This kind of situation had happened before in the array formation master competition. Some array formation masters who were very confident in their array formation skills would often stop after making 1 array stone. They did not plan to continue. This was because in such an environment, the array stone that was made later was not as good as the one that was made earlier. That's right. That's right. Making an extra one is for the sake of safety. You don't have to be so worried, Bai Ziyuan said. The group of juniors nodded when they heard that. However, the worry in their hearts did not dissipate. When Shen Duanyu noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang had not finished making the first array stone, a trace of mockery appeared in his eyes. He knew that this woman was just trying to impress the crowd. Could it be that she knew that Di Beichen would be embarrassed this time, so she came up to help him? What a joke! He slowly turned his gaze. He wanted to see if Di Beichen was as slow as him. However, he realized that after making the first array stone, Di Beichen sat there calmly and waited for the competition to end. Wasn't this guy a little too arrogant? Shen Duanyu's eyes widened in disbelief. Apart from a few famous array masters, no one else would dare to do such a thing. Di Beichen was just a fledgling, yet he was so arrogant. It was unknown whether he had real skills, or was just trying to play to the gallery. As he thought of this, Shen Duanyu unconsciously became distracted. The formation stone in his hand suddenly shattered into powder. Looking at the powder in his hand, Shen Duanyu suddenly felt his face burning. If he failed to create a first-grade array stone, wouldn't it be a joke in the eyes of others? He quickly threw away the powder in his hand and picked up another array stone, pretending that nothing had happened. However, such an act of deceiving oneself was obviously of no use. Many people noticed this and snickered in their hearts. To be able to fail in crafting a first-grade array stone, this level is truly impressive. Ning Tian raised her eyebrows, her gaze inadvertently sweeping over Zhen Gudao's face. You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.